Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Planning Commission meeting this evening on August 27th. Based on the bell, we shall begin. I'd like to call the meeting to order. If we could please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag, United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. We do have a live feed going on, so if anyone notices that we have comments or anything from those virtual, if you could call them out, give a hand on that, I would appreciate it. Otherwise, I'd like to call for approval of the minutes of our last meeting, please.
Make the motion to approve the minutes of July 23rd meeting.
Any comments, suggestions, revisions? All in favor? Any opposed? Thank you. So our first action item this evening is the zoning ordinance task force update. And we do have Michael Baker International in attendance this evening to provide updates and bring us up to speed on future steps. So with that, I'd like to ask for them to come up and give us an update.
Hi, everyone. I was expecting to go second, so thank you for calling on me. My name is Samantha McLean. I am the project manager for this zoning ordinance update. I've been working with New Garden Township throughout the last year, a little over a year now on this process, specifically with a task force of stakeholders and residents. So on the second slide here, you'll see a list of all the task force members that we've been working with throughout the year, some of you before me, and then in addition to the Planning Commission chair, and then a business representative and a local planner and developer. If you remember back in June, I was before you all to present the draft ordinance and some feedback that we had received at the public outreach meeting back in May. On the next slide, so today I'm here to talk a little bit about the process that we've had since June, what's happened, the feedback that we've received, as well as some of the proposed edits on some bigger ticket items in the ordinance that the task force made some decisions on at their meeting in August. Additionally, I'll share some feedback that we received from the solicitor, excuse me, and some sections of the draft that are still under review, and then end with some next steps. On the next slide, it outlines the process since June. That's the slide right after that. So on June 25th, I was before you. That was really the first formal opportunity that you all had as a planning commission to provide feedback to the task force on the draft ordinance. The month after that, in July, we met with the Board of Supervisors, and it was a similar opportunity just to allow a format to receive feedback from the supervisors to share back with the task force. And that's what we did in August. So August 7th, we met with the zoning task force, those members that you saw on that first slide, to discuss the feedback from both of those meetings, the Planning Commission and the Board of Supervisors, but then also from the public outreach meeting in May. So we received a lot of feedback, and that was really kind of the discussion topic in August, and we'll share some of the decisions that were made. But just to give you kind of a snapshot of where we're headed, so after tonight, we'll be meeting with the task force again in September and finalizing the draft zoning ordinance update and map and publishing that. So the version that you see online is still the version from April. We're still working off that version. There has not been another released version. Another version will be released in September. After which we'll come back to you all for your consideration and recommendation to the Board of Supervisors. That will kick off a 45-day public comment period that's mandated by the Pennsylvania Municipalities Planning Code. And then after that 45-day public comment period, it'll go to the Board of Supervisors for an official public hearing on the ordinance and map. So on the next slide, We'll be touching on some high-level feedback that we received at the task force considered, but I do just want to flag for you all and everyone that's here in the public that there's a draft ordinance feedback summary. This is available on the public hearings tab and on the project updates tab of the website. So this document, it's kind of lengthy. It includes all feedback from Public Outreach Meeting 4 in May, written public comment that we received, feedback from the Planning Commission, and then feedback from the Board of Supervisors. So that was a tool that the task force used, or a resource that they used, and it's definitely something that we invite members of the public to review as well. Okay, next slide. So we'll get into some of the primary edits. There were some little tweaks here and there, but we're not going to go into every single edit. We're just going to focus on a few of the bigger ones. So we heard a lot of feedback about the residential flex zoning district. This is the district, residential district that would permit the highest level of density or intensity within the residential districts. We focus this district kind of in the core of the township between the two main corridors, Baltimore Pike and Gap Newport primarily. And we heard some feedback about some concerns that the boundaries might be too extensive, that we should look into that, based on some of the existing characteristics of that area and whether the roads and infrastructure could support that level of density. So the task force considered this issue and ultimately decided not to change the boundaries of the residential flex district as they're proposed today. And that's because there are a lot of other regulations built into the zoning ordinance and the district itself regarding buffers, stormwater management requirements, and then the reality of utility availability. So ultimately, if there's not the availability of utilities on those sites, that kind of caps the density at a certain amount. And then the task force also believed that the boundaries should not change because they are located kind of in the core of the township, close by to the commercial corridors. Okay, we can go to the next one. Okay, so the other main topic that the task force discussed and that we received a lot of feedback was on the enterprise district. So this is kind of the industrial district that we're proposing for the township. There was a request and feedback to review the boundaries of this district and see if it could expand south of Star Road. So right now it kind of runs along Penn Green and then stops at Star Road. The task force once again discussed this and determined that they were not going to recommend a change to the boundaries of this district. They believe that the boundaries address the comprehensive plan goal, which was to promote strategies that attempt to reduce and avoid conflicts between new residential development and existing farm operations, and that keeping the boundary as is would help minimize future disturbance and use-based nuisances. And then the final area, or like large topic area that the task force discussed, and unfortunately it's cut off on the version on the screen right here, but the full map is on the website. We did look at the area along Limestone Road between Gap Newport and Southwood. And we had, at our last meeting in June, we had suggested two different scenarios. Keeping that area as a mixed-use corridor, which is what is in the draft right now, changing it to innovation district, which would allow for more of like a campus-like employment type opportunities, or another alternative. So we did receive a proposal from community members for a new zoning district, specifically along Limestone Road. The new zoning district would have kind of some of the existing uses that are permitted in the innovation district, but like lesser intensity light industrial uses. The task force decided that they wanted to have this area zoned as the innovation district. They thought that the proposal would create more non-conforming uses. So something that we had presented to you back in June was that we had to weigh kind of the surrounding property owners' concerns and ideas with the property rights of the existing owners, and that innovation district achieves that. And then, so the task force thought that the new zoning proposal from the community members would create more non-conforming uses and decide to keep it as innovation. However, and this is something that the task force will be looking at in September, is they did agree to review the use matrix for the innovation district. So there might be some tweaking and maybe looking at some of those higher intensity uses and seeing if they really are appropriate. Okay, so in addition to those three big topics that the task force presented, we did receive some feedback from the township solicitor based on their legal review of the agricultural uses and definitions in the proposed ordinance. So based on this, the uses and definitions will be updated. Some of the considerations that went into this legal review is, of course, case law, the Nutrient Management Act, acre, right to farm. These are state level codes that supersede local jurisdiction. We also received a lot of community feedback, but we're also from business owners and community members, but then also some concerns about public health impacts of the hydrogen sulfide that is the byproduct of some of these operations. So we're weighing a lot of different considerations here. So what we ended up with on the next slide is on the chart on the far left-hand side, you can see what we have in the April version of the ordinance, the previous version. In that ordinance, we had separated out agricultural operations into different types of agriculture: crop farming, crop storage, raising of livestock, mushroom growing, mushroom composting, and then we had composting facility as a separate use. Based on review of kind of state law and case law, it was recommended that we not separate out different agricultural uses, that they need to be treated the same. So the proposed edit is that all those agricultural uses will be considered a normal agricultural operation and permitted in the residential low density, residential medium density, residential flex, and enterprise districts, which is the districts that these agricultural uses are permitted in now. Then looking at composting in more detail, we are proposing two definitions for composting: commercial composting operations, which would only be permitted in the enterprise district, your industrial district, and then agricultural composting operations, which would be permitted in all the districts where agricultural operations are permitted. So on the screen here, you see a definition of those two. So the difference between those two types of agricultural or those composting operations are where the compost is used. So agricultural composting operations being defined as an operation where more than 50% of the compost is used on site, whereas a commercial composting operation would be 50% or more is used off-site, shipped off-site. So once again, agricultural composting operations that use most of their compost on-site would be permitted alongside or in the same ways that normal agricultural operations are permitted, whereas commercial composting operations would remain permitted in the enterprise district. Okay. The next slide is just to, I mentioned this earlier, but the task force will be reviewing the use matrix in more detail, specifically the review of the uses in the innovation district. So I just want to make a note that there haven't been decisions that have been made regarding that. That will be something that we can share in September. And then in terms of next steps, we are going to be having a task force meeting the week of September 8th. We are determining that date still. And then we'll be releasing the final draft of the zoning ordinance and map after that, at least a week before your planning commission meeting on September 24th. So we hope to be back here in front of you in a month. And then, of course, that 45-day public comment period starts where there's an opportunity for the public to submit comment, but then also the Chester County Planning Commission. I am happy to answer any questions you may have. And then I know we have some task force members in attendance, some task force members on the commission. So I also welcome kind of any input that they'd like to share as well.
I just want to know, were you fully aware of Acre when you started this? Or did you know and you ignored it?
We were fully aware of it. It's interesting because the agricultural definitions that we included in the first draft of this ordinance have been used in other municipalities that we've worked with and has undergone a legal review by their solicitor. Solicitors are, have their own opinions, and ultimately, we're working for New Garden, so we want to make sure that your solicitor is comfortable with it. And they were ultimately not, so that's why we
So
made the
you
revision.
were aware of it?
Yes.
Okay, because it's kind of like the first time I heard of it, so.
Oh, yes. Yeah. So there, in addition to Acre, there's some other laws and ordinances that just supersede that local zoning
Well, I should
authority.
say, it's the first time I heard you mention it, that's all.
But maybe I can clarify a little bit for you, Bob. What the task force started out doing was kind of what their thoughts were. And then we brought the legal review in to kind of help have a broad vision from the task force and then bring the pieces in like legal that are going to weed things out. If that makes sense.
That's a good answer.
It's a good answer. Whether it makes sense or not, that's the logic behind it.
Thanks, Ronald. That's all question I had.
Any questions from our neighbors? Yes, sir. Please.
Yes, this thing's on. Okay, so Steve Alaban, Board of Supervisors, resident. Couple questions. Manufactured housing is listed in the low density residential. Should that not be in a higher density district, number one? That's one question. Next question would be, the definitions are listed throughout the entire ordinance, which creates an array of confusion because there are different, there's the same use in different districts. If the definitions were compiled in the beginning of the ordinance, you would know what the rules and the uses are so that you could flow through to your district and say, okay, I can do A, B, C, and D there. Just to try and make it a little bit simpler. Comments on mini storage, I think we're trying to regulate them by a 3-mile radius. In my opinion, they should be allowed on the connector roads, the arterial roads, and any commercial district. Throughout the township. Everyone that we currently have here has a minimum, a nice assessment. They're low impact. I don't see traffic jams during peak hours of people trying to get in and out of mini storage. That's typically on the weekends, after hours, early hours in the morning. Again, this is just my take on a couple things. Non-conforming uses, and I know the MPC has changed whose duty, whose responsibility. It's just, I'm sort of up in the air how we go about tracking all that, because I feel for Robert and team, it's hard enough now, and it could be more complex with the ordinance, with the multiple districts. Looking at the matrix that you sent out, I think that we are going in the right direction. I mean, I think it's much improved. Natural resource protection ordinance, I've not seen any major changes to that, which actually would make me happy. Concerns about the saldo, that process will immediately follow the adoption of the zoning ordinance, correct? Because what we have now, we have a district that we've created that has, that could be in the CI district now, which has different standards than they're in the R1. But now you have two districts combined into the enterprise, let's say. So that's going to have to be a must to do that as soon as possible. Understanding this is, a big process. I don't know of any other municipality in Chester County that has taken on a process of this size, the entire township. So the map, the ordinance, and the saldo, all three need to work together in order to successfully develop your properties. In looking at some of the uses in the commercial districts, and this isn't like a deal breaker for me, we can always amend the uses, whether we take away or add more uses in each district. Just something that I had a couple questions on. And lastly, I think I just want to say again that this has been we've almost done a complete reversal on the agriculture. If you read through the MPC, if you read the acre law and try to understand it, there are conflicting terms in there, but I believe that the acre law would be the one that we have to try our best to comply with. And I think that, I think we're on the right path. So if you could help me with the manufactured housing to help me understand that, the definitions, the mini storage potential. I think those are some of the bigger things. That there was a lot of other questions on the agriculture about livestock and this and that, but I believe as I'm reading it, agriculture is agriculture. So there are no standards in that. That's all I have. Thank you.
I'm here on behalf of the Estates of Harrogate. I have another board member here with me tonight as well.
Yep.
Okay.
Can I have your name for the minute?
Rona Devine. But I'm here on behalf of the Estates of Harrogate as a
Yep.
board member.
Do you have your address?
No, it's for the Estates of Harrogate. So for the whole community. Okay, so that's Harrogate Road, Harrogate Drive. Right? I want to say first, I heard this presentation by Samantha. And what I heard, maybe I'm wrong, is residents gave a lot of feedback about this. And the task force decided not to do anything about it, or they considered it, but really didn't act on it. And the Board of Supervisors, the township manager, they are here to serve the residents, and having public feedback can't be just something that you're doing to jump through hoops. It needs to be heard, considered, and acted upon. It is incumbent upon all the commissions and the Board of Supervisors to do that. It is not just a hoop to jump through. You can't just have public feedback and just ignore it all. So it's a little bit concerning. I was very involved with not just the Estates of Harrogate, but Harrogate, Harlow Point, and some people from Somerset as well, in proposing another district. What happened was I don't know how much you all were, were they presented with the matrix that was presented? The task force was. Okay, so, and this was at the suggestion, I should say, Christopher Himes, many, many months ago, suggested maybe we would have a separate district for that limestone area. It was something we could discuss. And it was changed to the enterprise district. It doesn't make, no, the innovation district, I'm sorry. It does not make sense. And I'm going to tell you why. Almost 20% of all housing units in this township are right there, right at that limestone Southwood area. And some of the things that are included in that innovation district are biomedical facilities that could prove to be catastrophically injurious to a large portion of our township residents. Wind energy systems, large warehouses, including loading docks, heavy equipment, which could include noise, odor, or other noxious byproducts, and may involve frequent commercial vehicle access and outdoor storage of materials or products. So we spent many, many, many hours. And again, the original idea came from the township manager to create a separate limestone road district. And we presented that. And what we heard tonight, in fact, Chris, which I did appreciate, sent an email saying it would be discussed tonight. But what I heard was that was rejected. It doesn't really make sense. We're not an innovation district, but it also doesn't make sense because there are some very valuable commercial uses that happen in that limestone road area. For example, the storage, there's a knife, but they're quiet. They're not producing noxious, this is per the proposal, the plan for the zoning, no noise, odor, noxious byproducts. So it makes sense to have this separate district that would allow for commercial use, which the innovation district does not allow for some of those things, and also protect a large portion of the homeowners. So I really would like that to be reconsidered. I don't really understand why that was dismissed by the task force, especially since our township manager is the one that said maybe we should be looking at a separate district. That area is unique. It doesn't fit. And it also doesn't make sense when you look at it. It's kind of like the redistricting that's happening all over the country, both big political parties. We're putting this here, and then we're going to put almost like a little annex at a completely separate part of the township. So it just doesn't make sense. So I would like that to be reconsidered. The second thing I would like to bring attention to is for you all to consider as you keep going. The proposal is for another greater than 45% increase in housing units in this township. And I'm not saying it shouldn't happen. The concern is, what will that impact be, and will it be too late? And so I would like the commission to consider putting limits. What will that do to our housing values? What will it do to the roads? What will it do to the taxes, the tax burden for existing homeowners? And say, we'll allow that 5% increase of homes this year. In 9 years, you would be at the 45%, but you can't really allow it all at once and then go, oops, the roads can't handle it, the tax burden is too much, the school burden is too much. So I'm asking for the Planning Commission to just kind of use some common sense and maybe stagger it, put some kind of limitations on that growth so that it doesn't happen all at once. The last thing is, I just want to understand what matrix was sent out. You had mentioned the matrix was sent out, Steve. What was the matrix? Oh, but nothing has changed. And the biggest concern, and I think this was heard, but it doesn't seem to be addressed in all district, is the permitted by right use. That is very, very, very dangerous because you have no power. The Board of Supervisors has no power. They are allowed to come in and just build instead of the zoning hearing board which has restricted things, particularly in that area that we're talking about, that would all go away. And so that is a concern. How can we get this relooked at? What can happen? We have task force members here. Is there anything that can be done?
The uses that you proposed were not looked at because the last meeting of the task force, we got through what was presented tonight. But if you saw on the one slide where it said that the task force agreed to review those uses, that's where the matrix that you had handwritten
Yeah.
on, so that hasn't been reviewed, but it's
It's
planned
going
to
to be reviewed. The
yes.
only concern I have, which I'm considering what you want to accomplish with the Innovation District, is that those proposals might limit the Innovation District. Do you see what I'm saying? That's why we proposed another district. And again, it did come from Chris, his idea. Maybe we should have another district. He said it publicly in a meeting many, many months ago. But then if you do make those proposed changes, which we would very much appreciate, you're now limiting the Innovation District. So that is why we took that step to say, okay, let's run with Chris's idea. Let's create that district. So I do appreciate that you are looking at it, but we did our best to balance, to honor what the Innovation District is trying to do, but then also protect that unique area. So if there's a way, is there a way? So I'm asking you, because are you on the task force as well?
Just as a staff member,
Okay, because I'm wondering,
the same as
Is-
MBI as the
is there a way for that to kind of be brought back where they look at it and go, you know what, yes, this
The
innovation.
uses will be revisited. As far as the task force, I think they pretty much made a determination that they weren't interested in doing that.
Another
Okay.
district,
What's that?
another district.
Correct. So that's not to say that it's thrown out, it's just to say that the task force didn't agree that there should be an 11th district made. That could still, at the end of the day, be put in there, and the task force is ignored. And
So you're saying,
that's still good, it's just the recommendation of the task force.
okay, and so you're saying you could consider it as the planning commission and still put that?
And as the board of supervisors, sure, they can
Okay.
consider going.
Well, I appreciate that. And I appreciate, listen, I know you're all volunteering your time. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Just because I'm quite sure what you're talking about. Your problem is with having uses by right instead of by conditional use. Is that right?
Yes, or non-permitted, right. But like, honestly, anywhere in the township, anywhere, why would you allow a gas station by right? That should be reviewed. There's traffic, there's the
Well-
potential for, you know what I mean? I don't want to get into each and everything, but there's an awful lot. And what we did when we sat down, I'm telling you, days, so many hours to review this. We looked at the current existing uses, what is permitted right now in that area. And there were huge, huge differences. And so that's what we're, right now, many of the things that are proposed for I'm going to call it the Innovation District Annex, because it doesn't belong in the Innovation District. The Innovation District's up here, and the Southwood, Limestone is down here. It doesn't make sense. It's like they're trying to force something.
One of the points that was made was that the Innovation District does not differ very much from the Unified Development, which is what it is today.
Well, that is wrong. That is what I'm saying. We went line by line to say what is currently permitted and how is it permitted? Is it by conditional use? Is it, by exception? And so that is the thing. It's not only what is permitted, but how is it permitted? And we went through line by line by line of the current statute and the proposal. And there are vast differences. I don't know what people are saying. There's not that much of a difference. There is an enormous difference. And I am an attorney, and I did go through myself, one by one.
I'm an attorney also,
Yeah.
thank you. But
Thank
one-
you very,
Another point was,
yeah.
some of the parcel actually is in Kennett Township on the other end. And I know you represent Harrogate, and it's
The estates of Harrogate.
it's
But-
about I don't know if it's 200 acres, but it's a very large area. So if the concern is what's closest to Harrogate, that's one thing.
Harrogate, Estates of Harrogate, Harlow Point, we have someone here from Harlow Point, we have another from the Estates of Harrogate, and also Somerset Lake are impacted. And so it's just and also the businesses, like we have really good neighbors who are businesses there. We have the Limestone Knife, we have Limestone Storage, I don't know the knife company, it's not Limestone. They should be able to operate their businesses. And businesses like that belong there. So that is the concern. I'm very happy. Thank you for sharing that you could still include that proposal. And I would be happy to send it to all of you, any of you, if you'd like. A lot of time went into it. So if you'd like me to do that, hit me up and I'll, email it over to you.
Thank you very much.
Bob seemed like he had something to say.
I got another question for her. Has there been any zoning areas that were changed to use by changing the uses by right? And how many of those were there?
Can you step over to the microphone? So to make sure that everyone online can also hear.
And the reason I'm asking that question is because we have an existing township with existing zoning.
Mhm.
So if you're all of a sudden, if you're changing things so drastically for people who are in a position, living there or have a business there, and you change it,
Mhm.
so what happens then? I guess she was getting that. I was just trying to follow her.
Sure. So it's hard to do a one-to-one comparison, right? Because your existing zoning districts, the new zoning districts don't necessarily align directly with those existing zoning districts. So while in general, the CI district is maybe comparable to the mixed-use corridor, there are also areas of the CI2 district that are part of that. So this was a comprehensive zoning rewrite and mapping process. So it's hard to say, exactly a one-to-one. We did look at, for example, the Innovation District along Limestone Road and the existing zoning, which is the UD, and looked at those uses. As Mr. Weir said, we will be looking into those in more detail. But in general, we look through the lens of what does the comprehensive plan say about that area? And how do the use permissions align with that? So in some cases, your use permissions in your existing ordinance are more liberal than the proposed use permissions. In some cases, we allowed uses to be permitted by right if it was a use that met the intention of the district. So that is, I know that that's not a, just a short answer. It really depends. And we do have a comparison chart that shows kind of our thinking behind permissions and what has become more restrictive and less restrictive that we've been using as a tool to look at those uses.
Well, the UDZ zone was created for specific use down there.
Mhm.
So I mean, I really haven't studied the map, how you have it laid out there, but if it's changed dramatically, then that's not really fair to where people have been, it had some issues over the years. Hell, people couldn't even put a deck on the back of their house in Somerset
sure.
or in Hartford. And they changed that to a third
Mhm.
UDZ.
Mhm.
So I hope all these things are in consideration here, what's going on.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm blanking on the month that we had the public meeting that was focused kind of on our mapping process. But one of the first things we do beyond just looking at your existing zoning boundaries is we look at what is happening on the ground. Because like you said, some of your existing zoning is not permitting what's happening on the ground now that you want to continue happening. So, you want someone to be able to build a deck, or there's a business that makes sense in that along that corridor that you want to continue and you don't want to present any barriers. So part of the remapping and looking at it was kind of right sizing and adjusting the boundaries to align with the township's goals. Not creating any more nonconformities was a goal of the township, and there's a lot of nonconformities that exist right now. So that we kept in mind. The nonconforming uses that might be a result of this ordinance are because that use is in contrast with what is desired in that area
Desired by who?
by the comprehensive plan, the goals of the township.
Well, that comprehensive plan's been gone over for every 10 years, so I don't know why it would be that much different, that's all. Mhm.
Yes, ma'am. So yes, thank you for all of your hard work. It is appreciated. I know that there's been many, many milestones and there's many more to come, but truly thank you for all of your efforts and all of your team's efforts. Before we move on to the next subject, we have another question. Yes, sir.
They left it, what they wanted to go, it gave a better deal back, and the road was no good. And we tried all hard, we could all find common ground. Today, I try to get the main process to themselves. You got up on the bypass, towards wrong with both sides. Us back, us on here, wrong same here. Make it work in tough time. Get the work on 41. We're gonna be backed up this day, it's not working. So we gotta start thinking about alternative, how to deal with it, on time. But I appreciate all of it, I'm looking for on my farm. All get together, put the vision on. Right. Nine, fine. You need all of it. Chris, Kevin? No. Yeah, I did draw, task force speaking.
Thank you very much. We appreciate, thank you. Thank you so much. We appreciate you coming out this
Got a
evening.
question for Barclay. Hey, Barclay. Barclay. You talked about the ag security. Do you know where the ag security is in New Garden? You do? It's, it's all over. There's pieces all over.
I swear, we must have at least 1,300 acres, so it only needs 500. We couldn't have sold our development rights. If we were not in an ag security area. Two of us sold our security rights to the state. One was Laurel Valley, and the other was me. I was in 93, there in 202. And I know this is a hurtful subject. And you're going to talk about it. But we got one thing to look at on enterprise side. I don't know how you're going to deal with Laurel Valley cement operation, the other side of Star Road. That's a pretty active operation. It's under a state easement. And I know they're getting inspected. Somebody's got to give approval. I don't understand the total answer. I do not have, I'm not going to act like I did it. That's one place in agriculture. It's going to be a tough one. But they got a lot going for them on the law side, from what I see. But I'm not supposed to reform. I lobby for agriculture. All I'm saying is there's a lot of intensity on that area right now. That's probably one of the most intense scrutinized areas there is right now. And it's very active, preserved by the state, and I don't know the code of law. But it's a tough one to deal with.
Well, whose choice was that?
I don't have a clue.
Well, I asked her.
Oh,
She's, whose choice was it to make it different on the other side of the road? Star Road.
So this was a conversation that I think we had brought before you in June to discuss in terms of the boundaries of the enterprise district and where they should stop. And then it was something that was discussed by the task force this past month. That was seen as a boundary in terms of the types of uses that were south of Star Road. North seemed to have more of the intensity of the existing uses. And so that's where the task force decided to draw the boundary. And that was also just with kind of the feedback or lack thereof too from the you all and the board as well on those boundaries.
Well, from Newark Road, there's about a handful of houses, and from there on is all agriculture. That spent compost, I would consider that agriculture anyhow. It's kind of odd that they would keep that out of it. And whose choice was that? Was that the supervisors? Was it the manager?
That's the task force, Bob. That's what she's saying. It was looked at. There was comments about it, but the task force at the end of the day decided that Star Road was the best line for that. So, because it kind of created a natural, natural barrier. That being said, that's the task force. Again, all the same way as with the Innovation District, and this gentleman is coming up to talk right now is probably going to have something else to say about it.
But-
But the,
Wouldn't it make more sense to make it Egyptian Road rather than make it Star Road?
that's a planning commission comment that can go back. I'll leave it at that because I'm not making a decision for the task force, but that's the proper.
Saying you make, I'm
Yeah.
not saying that. I'm just saying, it just seems to me, and somebody asked me about it a few weeks ago, and I said, well, I'm
Yeah, and to that point, there's differing opinion on where it should be. So, I say that that's something that the task force, or should be, considered as part of the PC comments going forward.
Okay.
Good evening, everyone. Charlie Gerbron, I'm representing, I want to, I'll be pretty brief here. That is our sort of question from the beginning was that strip, that what I call the Egyptian corridor, not only is it already used for agriculture, but it can never be used for residential because it's all under agricultural easement. So our view of it, noting the vast majority of it, is that it's poor planning to plan for something that you know can never go. So we would ask, the planning commission ultimately is going to make a recommendation. And that would be our first preference, I think, because it makes a lot more sense. Both the Board of Supervisors and the task force and staff have been polite and responsive to our questions. And one of them was this idea that the initial draft that came out had had composting only as an accessory. So that is one area that we've been told is going to be changed, thankfully, because there's two big operations on either side. And I guess that's one of my questions is when will a draft be up? Only because I like to be able to see something before I give up on it. And I'm just wondering.
So after this, and this was in the presentation, so after tonight's meeting, the PC goes back to the September 8th meeting with the task force, then that is when we will revise the draft and take everything that, whether public comment, all those things, and put them into that final draft.
Egypt Road is a better order. I think the Board of Supervisors may differ on that. Reasonable minds can disagree on what is. I would obviously see it as a legislative decision. Perhaps an area of
Thank you very much. Again, thank you for everyone's hard work and comments. Yes, sir. Thank you. Any online feedback? None? Okay. Thank you very much. Greatly appreciate everyone's participation, everyone's comments. They are heard and we do take them in consideration. I know that we still have a lot of work to do, and all of these comments will be compiled, as well as any other questions that may come up through other venues that the public has been able to use. So with that, we will close this subject out, and we will look forward to hearing about the update to the White Clay Point development plans. And this evening, we have Stonewall Capital with us. And if you would like to come up and bring us up to speed on the changes that you have recently made, we would appreciate it.
Good evening. My name is DJ Woodlake. I'm with the Stonewall Development Team. If you go to the next slide, please. Yeah, we just want to come and present our updates to the current plan based on the feedback we received over the last month or so. If you could just go to the layout, that would be helpful. So here's, this is option 1A. We looked at a couple different options. Thanks. The largest change that you're going to see is we are no longer contemplating the sports complex, which was in this 12-acre area over here. So that's has been removed, and we shifted the stackable towns, as we call them, over to that area, which in turn increased the acreage that we were able to contemplate the retail section of the site. For that portion, we looked at two different options. This version, we're looking at a larger retail pad in the back, more of a big box type layout. We are not currently pursuing that option. There's an option plan 1B, that is the next slide down, that is not as pretty, but shows the more just inline retail combination of different pad sites, 115,000 square feet. And then as you get to the north side of 41, we still have the convenient gas shown here. And then on in this section, we have added, call them villas, which are age targeted, not age restricted product around the perimeter of that site. 65 of those, and then there's 120 of 24-foot towns there. So those are like kind of the major changes that we have. We also look to add a connection to the park through the single family area here, which ties into the existing road network and could be a potential access point to connect it further east and towards Limestone Road to try to ease the concerns out on Reynolds Road. We're still pursuing and contemplating different options for the connection to Reynolds Road. I think that we looked at potentially all options, and for that, because of the secondary ingress and egress, it needed to be maintained, but we were looking at workshopping some options in order to ease the concerns with the traffic there that Neil could maybe expand on later. As far as the residential goes, we reduced the count from, I think it was 682 to 622, so reduced by about 10% on the residential units. So we're continuing our conversations. We, with Aqua, can report that those conversations are still going well. We met with them last Monday and are continuing to progress with them. So nothing concrete at this time, but just can report good progress there. And then, continuing to have conversations with Somerset Lake on their concerns with the lake there. And SAVE, we are currently updating our traffic study based on this new layout with the retail changes and different residential counts. So once we have that traffic study, we'll be re-engaging with SAVE to look at the 41 corridor as well. So yeah, those are the big changes and updates that we wanted to present tonight.
So at this point, it's 1B that you are most likely looking to possibly make small changes to, but this is where you're most likely leaning.
Correct. Yeah, that's what we're actively pursuing right now. There, yeah, we're still showing a 30 to 40,000 square foot grocery store.
Planning Commission?
I guess this may be for somebody else other than you. The question is, the part across 41 where you're suggesting 120 townhouses, there was 82, where'd you go? Over there. There was 82 55 and older homes presented there in the last plan from Pratt. They weren't going to build them because they're commercial builders. But there was 82 of them, okay? But they were going to be individual homes. Now, you know, I don't know if that rule was ever changed or not, because Pratt came to us one time and said, you know, we can't sell them at 55 and older. I didn't believe that either, because one of the best developments in this township is Brittany Hills. It's well maintained. It's beautiful homes. And I don't quite understand why you wouldn't be more inclined to do that than what you want to do and stick 120 townhouses in there. You still allow 19% by the state rules, I guess it's state rules, that you can sell it to somebody that's under 55. Whether that happens or not, I don't even know how they follow that. But to just, because the surrounding, you're talking about, and I can't read this thing, it's something about the villas. Where are these villas at?
Villas, they kind of border the perimeter of the northern parcel. They kind of wrap around here. And then the towns are in the middle.
What's that now? Say that again. Where are they at?
The perimeter, there's 65 30-foot villas. They're an attached product.
Now, what do you consider a villa? Do you consider a villa an upscale townhouse? Is that what you consider a villa?
It's age targeted. It's not age restricted. So it has a first floor master.
And there's how many of those?
65 of them.
65.
Yes, sir.
They're going to be pretty close, huh? Like right on top of each other, right?
They're an attached product. They come in
There's no
sticks.
distance between them. In other words, if I'm sure they're all going to be sprinkled, right?
Nearly.
If all that.
Yeah, so the villas, it's really they're 3-unit buildings. Each unit's 30 feet wide, and that allows them the ability to have the first floor master. The other townhouses in that area are 24-foot wide units. So they're going to tend to have the bedrooms just upstairs. They're laid out in that area because the villas are geared towards offering a full basement. So we put them in locations around the outside where the grading will allow various basement conditions. Some of the townhouses on the inside are not going to be able to have that exposed basement. And so it's just targeting a different point. And as I think as DJ said, and as Ray said in his previous things, their intent is not that it's going to be a 55 or older community with strict rules. It's going to be, they're targeting it to people who want less maintenance, want an individual home, but it's connected to others. So they don't want the responsibilities that come when you own your single family lot. For instance, all the singles on the other side, the same people could move there, It's just offering different products for people who are, want different things out of what they're getting.
Yeah, where's everybody going to park?
I'm sorry?
Where's everybody going to park? You got two cars in every household, maybe.
So those all have 2-car garages. They'll have space in front of the garage, and there's also off-street parking spaces. Conceptually, we're providing like 1 guest parking space per unit so
One-
that you have
one?
room for guests, or if you have more than, 2 cars.
Say that again, I didn't follow you.
So each one of those units has a 2-car garage,
Two-car garage.
and then there's room
All
to
of 'em.
park
All of them? All the townhouses?
everything except the stacked townhouses. The units that we replace, that were in the middle on the south side, that are now where the sports facility was, that are the attainable units that we're trying to have the most affordable price point. Those have single-car garages. But all the other units have 2-car garages, and then they're set back enough that you can park 2 cars outside the garage. And then everywhere that we have the attached units, there is room for guest parking, both with the stacked townhouses, the villas. There's room for guest parking so that when, if somebody has more people over, or if somebody has more than 2 cars, or someone has a lot of stuff in the garage, or whatever, there's room for additional parking off-street.
Only reason I have some problems with this is because we have townhouses were built in this township very, very long time ago. And the biggest problem is parking. And the biggest problems we have is in that townhouse area. So I'm just concerned when you start putting people so close together and that many of them, somebody's not going to like somebody. And there's going to be, I just think you're sticking too many in one spot there.
I can appreciate, you do have to provide off-street visitor parking when you have townhouses, because when you have single families, even on the small lots, there's enough gap between the driveways that there's room that someone could park on the street. The UPS guy can pull off and not be blocking anybody's driveway. When you get to townhouses, it's almost driveway after driveway. So it really, you are correct. You do need to have room for auxiliary parking.
Well, then if you have sidewalks and streetlights and how wide are your roads going to be? 24-foot wide? If you're going to have street parking, you can't have 20-foot wide streets.
No, you need to have a wider street to have on-street parking.
Wasn't that going to eat up your room there?
I mean, you got to make a decision where, that's why we have the auxiliary parking in those areas. So there's no, where we have all the attached units, there's no vision of anyone parking on street. And I think where you have the other units, we haven't worked through all that, but there is the possibility of on-street parking. There's the possibility of providing auxiliary areas and such.
So somewhere in the plan, which isn't sketched, there's a parking lot.
Yeah. It might be easier, Bobby, if you go back to the colored plan, because the only difference here is the commercial. I mean, it's a little hard to see, but like this area, these buildings are in a row. This is all parking lots. This is parking. There's parking on this end. Up here, there's parking where you see these little turn-ins. There's parking there. There's some parking in the end. There's parking here. And again, at this stage of the plan and this thing, it's a little conceptual, but we are providing room for off-street parking everywhere we have attached units.
So would that be assigned parking?
No, I don't think so. I think the whole point is it's meant to be guest parking, that each person still, again, these units here, and these are the older version when they were all townhouses, but each person has a 2-car garage. So you could put 2 cars in the garage if you don't have a lot of stuff. If you have some stuff, maybe 1 car goes in the garage. And then there's room lengthwise, there's 20 feet outside beyond any sidewalk or anything. So there's room to park a car, and it's 2 cars wide. So you could fit 4 cars, you could fit 2, you could fit 3, depending on what. So a lot of people still with that, one visitor could come and usually have some space in the driveway, or that's why you provide the visitor parking.
So how many units are proposed total?
600.
So there's 600 plus spare parking spots.
Hmm.
Because you said that every unit has one spare.
That's what we shot for in the attached sections.
So on this side, there's how many? 200?
So this is the stacked townhouses. So these are all,
So about how many units are here?
there are 168.
So there's 168 spare or extra
Correct,
parking
correct.
spots somewhere in the development.
In that area of the development.
Can I be really rude? Are they subcompact parking spots or?
No,
are
they're
they-
regular parking spots.
Okay.
This is hard to see because it's such a big area that this plan's at 200 scale. When we broke this down in the construction plans that we had submitted, we took 4 sheets to cover the whole thing, and that was still at 100 scale. When we get to real land development subdivision plans, we'll have 50 scale. We'll probably have like, I don't know, 12 or 18 sheets to cover the whole thing, and you obviously get a lot more clarity. But we're several steps away from that, so we're trying to provide information that we can get feedback from the township and the community and keep making adjustments like we've been making to the plan to work through this until we can get to the point where we're ready to submit a complete set of plans with, 50 scale sheets that you're used to seeing for, final detailed engineering.
Another question on that parking. Is each household limited to how many guest parking that is allowed to park in that free space over there or not? You're saying each house gets one visitor. Is that assigned per house, like they get a parking pass? Or is it one house can have 20 cars there parked for an event?
Yeah, the easy answer for that is that's usually dictated at the HOA level, how they want to handle it. Some HOAs like to be militant and put passes out to give out to guests and, monitor those spaces on a nightly basis to make sure people aren't staying over, things like that. Others are more lazy.
That type of HOA in a townhome development before. That's why I'm asking.
Yeah, no, it's a good question. I think it's important to note what he's saying is that every single one of these houses has 4 places to park a car. And then in addition to that, you have the guest parking, and there's really not any other reason that anyone would want to park in there besides visiting in the community. So, from our experience from doing this for a couple decades, it's when you have 2-car garages and townhouses like that with driveway spaces, you don't typically tend to have the same parking problems that you might have in, say, a 1-car garage community or a street parked community or things like that. But we're open to suggestions if you have some ideas on how you'd like that treated. If we're
Yeah, I
more
guess
than
that was
happy to
part of my
dictate it.
trying to understand when that gets developed as well, because so I lived in a townhome community just like this right out of college. So it was me and roommates. So we ran out of that 2-car garage parking with that because we all had our, car, and then we would have friends over, and then all of a sudden our one parking pass visitor spot was taken very quickly.
No,
And people
I
had to
get it.
park outside of the community and then walk in to visit us. And that's where, looking at where you're putting these, there's nowhere outside to then walk into if that was a restriction.
Yeah, so these houses would be limited to 1 household per house. So in your scenario, you wouldn't be able to sublease out to 3 or 4 people going to college or each bedroom. That's not typical.
No, it wasn't a sublease, it was one lease.
Got it.
But yeah.
Yeah, you're typically limited in most HOA docs, but yeah, it all depends on how they're written.
Well, so there's already a development agreement that's in place. They've gone through a zoning review, to your original question of 20 foot, I think if I'm correct, the 20-foot distance between houses is the zoning for that. And then to your question about the sprinklers, I think it was it's only required for the 3 as the Pennsylvania code, building code. So to clarify those 2, and does it have to go through zoning? Yes, it has been through zoning review. Does it have to go through zoning hearing? I don't believe so. The only one conditional use would be on there would be the gas station, because the fuel pumps in the UD district require them to be 75 feet or more, as where they would not be.
But the top, area at the top of 41 there, top,
Yes?
was 55 that was taken off. It was on there.
But was it it didn't have to be a condition. But was it a condition in the agreement? I understand that was in the last plan, but was it one of the conditions that was removed? I do not know that answer. Because I don't want to speak for them or for the township's attorney, but that,
I think my recollection is that the plans that JP Morgan did, we had 55 and older community up here, but it was not in the official plans that were approved with Priet. It was one of the concept plans that was presented by JP Morgan, but it wasn't the official submission JP Morgan made was for this area over here. And then there was never an official submission for the rest of this or the north side. And then the Priet plans that got approved and that were subject to the settlement agreement did not include,
the north side.
that wasn't, I think that 55 and older came in with JP Morgan. Was it there originally? Okay. Sorry. They had it on the plan. Okay.
I'm just saying. So, what you're telling us, board of supervisors,
I'm not saying that at all. No, what I'm saying is there is legal components to this project that were approved, and that's for the legal experts to figure out. No, I'm saying that I'm not saying that it has to be on this project. I don't believe that the 55 and over has to be on this project. Oh, I understand. I understand it was on there. Yes. That's this process, or else they wouldn't be in front of you. Yeah, there could be. There could be. I don't know whether there will be or not. I don't know that answer. We're still in the concept part.
So is your question, does the existing legal conditional uses or conditions carry forward to this proposal? I don't know that we have that information. I believe that's your question.
Correct. There was what, 95 conditions put on it that were then taken down to 17 by the courts. Yeah. So those 17 conditions would still have to apply. What they are, I don't know.
I do not want to put my lawyer hat on to pretend that I know the answer to that.
Bobby, for what it was worth, when I was on the board in '07 when that was finally approved, I remember, and I can't say legally, that up there was 55 plus. This over here on the Patterson property, you know where Jimmy was, that was the town center. That was town center. Power center was right there where the weigh scale was. That was the power center. 3 parts, as far as I remember. Power center was going to go in first. The only problem we had, Commie went south. 3 of us voted to condominiums, and then they took it to court and overturned it. And that's why we're sitting here. We haven't made any progress in how many years?
So I think part of the process is that obviously these gentlemen and this company is not going to not conform to any legal binding conditions that they must adhere to moving forward. We just don't know what they are as we sit here tonight. And we have a plan, a concept that you're looking for feedback on, and that this is pretty much just an open discussion, making sure that any questions are fully vetted, if I'm understanding a little bit about what you mentioned about this is just a concept for right now.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Is there any, like, playgrounds or anything like that on this plan? Is that your? intentions?
They have to do recreation. It's either recreation or recreation in lieu of, fee in lieu of. Yes,
Is it still 1,000 per unit?
no.
What is it now?
It is an algebra math problem.
It's what?
It is an algebra math problem. It's 50% of the gross assessed value multiplied by something. I would have to read it directly. It is not $1,000 per unit. It is much different.
You're very close to St. Anthony's in the hills, right?
Mm-hmm.
So wouldn't it be advantageous for them to give you about $1.5 million to put it into St. Anthony's Park? Makes more sense to me.
I don't think I would disagree with you.
Well, I think that ought to be under consideration.
And I think if you look, if you,
Just do 1,000 per
but if,
650. that's
yeah, and
pretty cheap.
Neil can correct me if I'm wrong, but there are roads that are designed within the plan to go into
to
the,
park.
yes.
So they're going to use our park that the taxpayers who live here now paid for as part of their plan, basically, if the road goes in there.
Okay.
All right? So it ought to be some major contribution to the park to upgrade. What was it last 30 million that they come up with some kind of,
For the fee in lieu of, the fee in lieu of is crazy.
well, most of the time it ended up being $1,000 per unit. That's what I remember.
That's
But
not,
That's how we built the park. There was 720,000 in fee in lieu of from Wilkinson's properties over the years, and half of it we built the park with. So I'm just saying,
a recreation contribution.
yeah, it's really important. You got our park right there. It makes the most sense to me.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sure they'll take it under consideration, right?
I think they already have, but I don't want to speak for them.
You?
Hi, thanks for being here again. And I think of these things in terms of safety first for everyone, and then lifestyle or quality of life. And to echo some of the things we heard from Bob and others, and about recreation and parking and just density, I have a pointer. For the commercial area, like, is it sufficiently designed for the loading, the trucks to come in and out for the loading? I see that there's the main avenue that comes straight in and then goes over there, and also fire truck pinch points. You know, are we going to be too tight in some places?
It is, this may actually sound odd, but all our commercial layouts, either this one or the one that's on the black and white plan, are all like under the density that we could actually fit. We actually, when we drew it at first, we had too many parking spaces. We had room for extra driveways. So we started backing off to be more realistic in what we thought the uses would be and to give them the right amount of parking. So we're not building a sea of parking just so maybe everybody gets a parking space on, you know, the Sunday before Thanksgiving when they're all shopping or something. But other than that, there's plenty of room. We've laid out everything with what we think would be sufficient access. Obviously, we got the formal plans. We would, you know, expect review by, you know, the township's emergency services people. And if we need to make adjustments, we would. But we actually have plenty of room in here, both for parking, for allocate for stormwater. Like on this layout right here, this whole section here, right, is just empty.
Right, I noticed that's
Because
empty
we
there.
didn't need more parking. We didn't know what was going to go there. We didn't know if it would be, you know, one of those civic
Right.
spaces mentioned in the design guidelines.
Right, like, quality of life, you think right away of beer garden or daycares and things. And, you know, for Mr. Braylock's been in and others, but to talk about opportunities there. So for the commercial, like over this way, you know, is there opportunity to put like the Sly Fox and Malvern and things to have the open space next to the end units of the commercial, you know, the east side for coffee or the west side for beers and, or daycare, even like the daycare here, Ducklings, the franchise will always want outdoor open space for the kids' playground. If they decide to put a daycare somewhere in this area to handle the kids for these 600 homes. Just something to think about conceptually.
I think the thing I've gotten from the Stonewall people and also from the different iterations of this in the past, everybody seems very willing to make adjustments to the non-residential space for what they think will work with the market. Nobody wants to build things that people don't want to use, that people don't want to lease. So I think any of these ideas are great ideas, and you know, they want to have a vibrant section. I mean, that's the whole purpose, to, you know, come in and get commercial units that can serve the community, that will make sense. The buildings can be leased. It will, you know, work well with the existing people who live nearby and the housing that's, you know,
Thank you.
proposed.
And to get onto the density or to me, it's very cookie cutter. That's on the north side, those townhouses and the stacked units. I noted the south fields of Elkton. They have a little bit more central open space between the 8 to 10 unit townhomes. But the one Westport development in Baltimore seems to have more of the, you know, rectangular block style like this. I'm wondering if there's any opportunity to maybe spread them out a little. If you're going to have all those parking spaces, you're going to need to have the mailboxes in banks where people go, because you can't have a mailbox in front of every house because they'll be blocked by the cars. It's tight because I'm an HOA manager. I know a little bit about it, but like up at the top, this property, there's a building here now, and that's going to be retained, I guess. And
That is all leased to the golf club. So
the
that from the pond over
hmm
is in a lease area, and that's just staying unchanged.
And that road that goes in there, is that on this property or off this property?
This one over here,
The road, this one, it goes along.
that gravel road, I think it's on this property, but it's not really, they may use it occasionally, but it's not the primary access for the golf course maintenance or any of that stuff.
So would that be something that you can use as an exit at some point? Or
I don't know that it serves a
Bob says that's a no.
purpose.
It's, I don't think it's your property.
It's over on the other property.
Huh?
It's across the property line.
I think so.
Okay.
Thanks.
To echo what Bob said about 55 plus, you know, it'd be nice to have a development that donates, or not donates. We don't have a public-private partnership on this project or anything like that, where some of the units could be handed over for Habitat for Humanity to build, that sort of thing. But it is important, I think, to have some units, like you said, that are first floor, that are for persons with disabilities or elderly, that have open floor plans and things for folks that have wheelchairs and whatnot. I don't know if that's going to happen at this development, but it might at some future development. The pricing is high. They're not affordable units. They're, like you say, they're attainable. But of course, it's difficult to keep the costs down. I understand that per square foot costs are quite high. On the south side by Sunnydale Road, over this way, so I guess these units here are kept away from the road because of the potential for the road's expansion at the T, maybe? Or could they could potentially be moved closer to the road to allow more space within the development? Was one thought I had. There's the pump stations, I guess it hasn't been determined where the pump stations would go at this point. You do have that. Okay, I saw there's one thing over here. There's a little bulb out there.
Right now, the latest version for pump stations, there's one on the north that picks up all the housing over here. It's located down here and the road, the low point in the road's here. And we have space here pointing for a pump station. So all this will drain by gravity to here to a single pump station. Then on the south side, we're actually proposing a pump station in the park that will let us it will let us collect sewage from different sides of the development in the same place. Plus all the things that we've talked about with the township and the park. The idea is that we would reserve a certain capacity for the township to use so that they would get the use of that for the park, their proposed, development plans for the park. So we're doing the same thing with stormwater. We've got some stormwater that we're showing in the park. And the idea is we've allocated a certain amount of impervious. And again, it's conceptual, but based on the input we got so that the township could build improvements in the park and have the stormwater already in place be constructed with this project and not have to do that. So
Thank
that's
you.
the theory right now on those things.
And this parcel is owned by you also, or
No.
the owners?
Um,
It is, I think, owned by them, but it's not part of the development.
it's not part of this. I forget who owns that piece.
Oh, Mrs. Garrett, well, it was half done farm.
Is that part of the St. Anthony's all the way down there? Okay. Oh, yeah, it is.
It's right on the river. Yeah. Mrs. Garrett used to live in there, her and her sister. And the dog.
And maybe finally, the pedestrian experience, some of the pictures depict 4 stories. I think that's probably not yet determined, the heights and things. So those buildings that are so close together, would they be 4 stories? Because then it creates a canyon effect. It's not the best pedestrian experience or maybe living experience. So just considering again how tight those rectangular multi or 8 to 10 unit buildings are close together, if there is some way to spread them or create a little different orientation or add some open space a little bit more between them would be nice. And Route 41, I think that's probably, well, as far as the commercial, if Route 41 is going to be 100 feet for 6 lanes, 4 lanes plus 2 acceleration and deceleration lanes of 11 feet each, plus a buffer and then a pathway or sidewalk and then landscaping, it's going to get wide. So just, I don't know what this diagram shows in terms of how close those commercial buildings are to the highway, but it'd be something to plan for.
Secured all of the way for their improvements last time around. So we haven't laid out anything obviously that's within the right of way. So that problem's already taken.
Do you know how wide it is?
It varies. I don't know exactly how wide it is, but what we did was given the high traffic counts associated with previous commercial and retail design, we're using as a placeholder what their improvements were then. We're obviously, as required by your code, as well as what we do anyway, updating that traffic study for the use in the model, all of the current traffic, as well as all of the proposed uses that are within your development pipeline to make sure that those proposed improvements actually accommodate all the additional traffic. But yes, we have the right of way already depicted with some improvements as we anticipate would be minimal.
Thank you.
Are you good?
Mm.
Any, please?
Can we discuss the rental roads section, that connection there, that you have it on the bend? You said you were, I guess, looking at the previous comments provided from the township engineer about site distance. I have a lot of concern about it being on that bend there, as well as increased traffic on that because of all the residents coming from the Meadows and these other townships, other neighborhood down here. They use that road, they walk, they bike to go down to Somerset Lake to connect to that path down there, to go walk around the lake. So I guess what are your I guess, ideas there for why is it on the bend, first of all? And
Yeah,
then,
so that's a good first place to start. So we work with what we're given, unfortunately. We don't own the corner, and there's some drastic grade issues here along with some wetlands.
Mhm.
Part of our mandate is to try and minimize wetland impacts and try and stay away from steep slopes. So that pushes it to here. It's the last spot we have before we get down here, and we can't make the connection through here due to wetlands here. So
have you looked at the site distance? Do you have adequate site distance there?
she's asking if there's adequate site distance.
The connection locations we're showing are ones that we've looked at before. We think there's adequate site distance everywhere, and obviously when we design that for real, that we have to have adequate site distance in order to propose the intersection. So,
So you have looked at it and you do have.
well, we've looked at these things in previous iterations, and where we have new locations, we're using the best info we have. I can't tell you exactly what the site distance is, except that we're on the outside of the curve, which would make me expect that we do. But we clearly have to have adequate
The
site
rate
distance, or we
change there
can't
as well.
propose.
Makes me.
Yeah. I mean, it's not something we can not have. So if it turns out that we have to do something different or spend money on improvements to make it happen, that's what we have to do.
And just as a more general comment, I hope this doesn't get lost, but a lot of the things that we've talked about tonight, they're not necessarily things we wanted to do. They're things we did in response to all of the comments that we've heard from both the crowd as well as the planning commission, as well as the board. And, it's just, you're never going to make everybody happy. I hope we understand that, but I hope we can at least acknowledge that those 30-foot wide villas that have a first floor master was our attempt to try and accommodate some of the requests for having housing that was more geared towards 55 plus communities. And the reason that we have the stackable towns, it would not be our first choice. The reason we did it is we were given the mandate, we need more attainable housing within this community. And that's the only attainable housing that we can afford to build these days, unfortunately.
Where apartments above commercial also could be an option.
Yeah, that's pretty much a non-starter in everywhere. The only place it ever gets built is places that they force people to build it, unfortunately. It's very difficult from both a legal standpoint as well as just a financing standpoint. But Reynolds Road is, and the reason I brought all this up, that's another perfect example. We didn't have a connection point here with a road directly through to the park. That was something that was requested of us. And so it's something we're trying to do is a favor to the township. If it's really something you guys don't like, we'll kill that connection, no problem. It just goes against all of the input we've been given. Well, that was another favor that we basically were told that the township would love it if we would put some infrastructure on there that they could use. And so we're building $1 million road down into Connection Point. They do, the dry line, and we're going to utilize that as well. Exactly. We're all on the same page, and we're trying to work and take in this feedback and accommodate it as best as we can. It's just, yeah, everyone has different ideas on what they want, unfortunately.
So,
To make it a little bit clearer, for some people, they talk about 55 and older being, that is a situation where they're paying school taxes and we're not getting schools. In other words, every other taxpayer's got to pay for those schools. Are you following where I'm going here?
I know exactly what you're saying.
So I really don't have an issue with it. The township says, well, we're not going to get earned income. Well, that doesn't mean that those people don't get earned income. It means that a lot of them don't. But, the township can spend less, so they don't have to collect more. So that's That's important that people understand that. You don't want to build these schools because now they're in the billions of dollars. And every taxpayer in this township is going to contribute to those taxes for those new schools. They built Bancroft School and it's not even filled up. And now they're replacing two old schools with two new schools. They had to do them together. So, you know, if you ask anybody, their biggest tax in this township is a school tax. It's great. It's great to have good school district because that improves the value of your properties. There's no question about that. But it gets to be quite a lot for a lot of people who can't afford those kind of expenses. If you can afford them, that's great. If you can't afford them, it's not. So I'd hate to have to see people have to move because they can't afford school taxes. That's not what this township was made all about. It was a home for a lot of people for a long time. So.
Did you have more questions?
Yeah, so I guess if we could go back to Reynolds Road, has there been any consideration about pedestrian connectivity on the areas that you can touch? I understand you don't, have access to all of Reynolds Road, but.
Yeah, it's been brought up a couple times. I think one of the biggest impediments we have is we don't actually connect to anything on Reynolds Road because we don't own this property. We don't own this property.
Well, I
And-
guess that's what I'm saying, the areas that you do own. That doesn't go all the way to,
You,
this goes all the way to Reynolds Road.
are you talking about this stretch right here?
Yeah,
And what would you like to see?
a pedestrian facility, like sidewalk, yeah.
We can certainly look into it.
Because there are, right across the street, you have the meadows right there. That would be then approaching, they could cross over and approach up to your proposed driveway out onto Reynolds Road.
The
So
stretch
that,
here to here.
so that site distance that I'm concerned about, you want to have walkers in the road right there on the bend.
Yeah.
And then whatever, and then on the bottom end, I guess in your brown,
Mhm.
that connects right into a path that goes, well, it doesn't go all the way around Somerset Lake, but it's there. It's like a
We-
little 3-foot wide path.
So we've been obviously talking with the Somerset Lake groups, very concerned about runoff and things like that. That
Mhm.
particular area, we're going to have to put a lot of work into looking at swales and drainage patterns, especially on our side of the road. I know the half of the road ended up getting curbed, which is causing a lot of runoff to basically hit the other side.
Right.
So we're gonna have to, that's our first priority, is making sure that we're not impacting any of the people down there. But if we have the ability to get a sidewalk in there, that's certainly something that we'd like to consider.
Right. Yeah, and I guess this is more for the township comment then too. I would think that it would be a big miss to not have some sort of sidewalk with how close you are to the middle school there. I understand there are not other existing sidewalk there, and that has been a purposeful decision of past years.
So I will comment on that because at the last PC, which I don't believe you
I
were
missed the
here,
last one, yes.
the gentleman that lives in that, right up there, flat out did not agree with sidewalks in that area.
And that's fine, but
So
you
that-
can, you
that's-
can,
that's
you can
kinda-
have, you can have sidewalks and build them and then eventually get to what you need to do.
So based on that feedback, I think is why these guys kind of took that, pulled that back. Going forward, hearing your comments, I'm sure they'll consider,
It would,
because he was very adamant that that should not happen.
and
that's
there were
fine.
also some other comments expressing concerns about the fact that there's no crossing
Right,
in the school that they would consider to be safe. But if those things
right.
can be taken care of, yeah, we'd love to contribute to.
And if it's not for the middle school, I do think there's a lot in how people traverse down Reynolds already. And if you're adding more cars to it, they need a safe area to do that.
Thank you.
Mhm.
More?
Oh, yeah, just one more thing. I saw something that you're looking into speed cushions on Reynolds.
No, we proffered it. Again, we're
Okay,
not
that-
trying to push any agenda here. We're just listening to feedback. And one of the pretty consistent pieces of feedback is people were concerned about the possibility that people use Reynolds Road
Yeah.
to get back out to 41. And we simply said that we're open to suggestions. The two logical solutions that, again, I'm not advocating, but the two logical solutions are either cut off Reynolds Road from Somerset, which I think will impact a lot of people since a lot of people are already using it as a cut through. But the other thing is we offered that we'd be more than happy if people wanted to dissuade people from using that cut through, that we'd be willing to put in speed bumps at our cost.
Well, I think speed cushions aren't used as a deterrent for cars to go on that road. They're used as a traffic calming option for the speed of the cars on that road. I would
Depending on how much clearance you have on the car.
agreed, but I guess my opinion of why you would put in a speed cushion is for that other. But
So
yeah,
maybe, so maybe the answer to that is to look at traffic calming items as opposed to just saying speed humps.
We're open to
And,
any.
you know, that's what I'm just saying, we'll kind of change the terminology.
Perfect. Any more commission questions? We'll come back to the group after we hear for our neighbors. Anyone from our neighbors would like to comment?
I just had a couple of questions. I was wondering what the price point.
Miss Aiello? It's
Oh,
Miss
yes, I'm
Aiello,
sorry,
right?
Clara Yellow, yes, Harlow Point. I was just wondering about the price points for the housing. I mean, based on, let's say, today's cost.
I don't have, it's not in my pay grade to be able to answer questions like that, but I'll tell you that I have been told that the goal is to have units that start with a 3 and the stackables. And I would assume from other experience that I would think the houses would start with the single family houses start with at least 6.
Okay. That was one question. The other question I had was, once approved or whatever, what would the timeline be? How long would it take to accomplish the goals?
It's the age-old question, because my partner's an optimist. He would say, we'll be breaking ground 18 months, and I'm a pessimist and say 3 years, but it's really just a question of how quickly we move our way through this process. And a little luck in dealing with state, which can a lot of times be the limiting factor.
Okay, and let's say those are all wonderful starts or whatever, how long would it take to accomplish this huge?
How long would it take to build out from when we stick a shovel in the ground? I think that with as much demand as there is in this area, you guys have clearly made it a great place to live. I think it would probably go out in 4 to 5 years.
Okay. And I'm not sure that you know, but maybe the planning commission knows, you ride through Kennett Square, they've built a lot of, I think they're apartments or condos right on, help me, the main, State Street, is it?
Yeah.
State, right? Are there, I don't know how, I mean, I know there's not hundreds, but are they moving fast? Have they been sold? Do we know anything? And how much were they running for? Are those just renting? Are they buying? Like, how do we know there's a lot of interest in something like this? Like, could we base it on what's happening in Kennett? I don't know, like, if you build it, will they come kind of a thing? I know you're saying that it's a great place. You're saying it's a great place to live, but is there that kind of demand for this area? Like, how do we know that? Has there been a study done or for the board?
I can give you our answer.
Okay,
Yeah.
I mean, at least someone's answering.
It's a good question because there is a great leap of faith when you have a community that hasn't had a lot of growth. The answer that I would give you is that the #1 home builder in the country and the #2 home builder in the country and the #7 home builder in the country are the 3 people who are looking at this most seriously, and all of them using their collective knowledge have all determined this is
Okay. So we're going by that leap of faith, okay? All right, and, I mean, some obviously just practical concerns besides, that one, would be like water pressure. I would imagine that, and obviously building takes that into consideration, but that's like a biggie, I think, in the area because we don't have the greatest, and then adding 600 more homes, I think it's 600, right?
Yes.
Yeah, 620, could, impact just the existing homes in the area. And then, of course, always the main thing on my mind are taxes. And is that a positive impact on our taxes or a negative impact on our taxes? Will our schools accommodate, I mean, right now, we don't know the age range of the people who would be willing to buy these homes. So will our schools accommodate or not? Will the people who are, or the price of the homes, will it help support and hopefully not increase our tax rates further than they are now?
Oh,
So
Yeah,
those
I was gonna say,
con-
Brian, do you want to talk about the impact?
Regarding school seat capacity, we've already shared our bedroom counts with Chris. Chris has been in contact with the school board. They have their own calculations that they use to estimate number of school-age children. The school board's very excited about this project.
assuming that we have people of school age moving into the, okay?
Yeah, they have their own assumptions. They use all the input into them with the number of bedrooms.
Okay.
They work that out. In terms of the economic impact, one of the steps that we're required to take as a part of our submission is completing an economic impact study. We just got it this morning, but I know my partner has already twice that once we've had a chance to go through it, make sure that all the assumptions in it were correct. We'll be sharing that on our website. We can post our plans and other information on that public site. I believe it's linked through, it is linked through your township site as well, if you need to find that, but that'll be the place where you'll be able to find that study and you'll be able to read it for yourself.
Okay. And lastly, I appreciate Mr. Parati's concern or statement about utilizing St. Anthony's in the park instead of building something separate. And also, I think you were referring to having the developers help offset the cost, our cost to that as a kind of a save or a build to that. I think that's a great idea. Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much. Yes, sir.
I apologize for my seemingly having a big mouth. My old supervisor days are coming back. I spent 6 years on the board dealing with the situation. And this is basically positive what I'm going to talk to you about. It has a degree of sense. When I worked there with Preet, board, we didn't own St. Anthony's in the Hills. And I begin to sit here tonight and see some cooperation between this development and this, and our St. Anthony's in the, what do you call it, New Garden Hills. You see what I'm trying to say? You got some, what? On this property, put that in, that's a common, that's a park. Oh, it's park, you were talking water management, you didn't?
But that is an area where we did propose above the parking lot as stormwater.
It seems like to me that they're willing to invest money. And it seems like we ought to be cooperating and pretty heavy to allow them to make that an asset, not only for the township in general, but for this development in particular. You wouldn't be what I'm trying to say? It seems like there's a lot of investment needed here, and seems like they're willing to put some investment in, and it would certainly help people being, it's a different world we grew up in. Smaller spaces, kids are gonna be around here. and they're gonna have to walk someplace. Another asset here that's not being looked at. The school district seemingly wants this development. Right across the road here, we got the middle school. Are we allowed to use, would that development be able to use those playing fields? If they were to ask for them, or is that a no-no? That's a no-no?
I was told they're pretty much always filled up, looking to entertain soccer fields.
It's possible for children in there to participate over in those fields.
Yeah, but they're always occupied by.
Oh, they're all,
someone.
I thought it was trying to figure this thing out. And another
We
thing,
got a lot of requests for ball field.
I see it. And another thing, this walking thing, and a resident not wanting. The sidewalk, the township owns a 33-foot right of way in there on it. They don't have 50, do they?
I don't think so.
But you got 33 feet. How much is your parkway? 20?
All right, 20,
22,
24.
22, and, well, do the math.
Yeah.
How many extra feet you got?
You're proposing there should be sidewalks through there is what, at the end of the day.
That right of way.
Correct.
I mean, you can have going out. Different deposits, everything. Another thing, this is not to stop you either, but being a farmer, well, I was under regulations for crossing streams and things years ago, wanted to lay some cement hog slats down for cattle walk on. They made me put down geotextile stone for the bog turtles to come up. But there weren't any bog turtles, except it was suspected bog turtle habitat. I assume at some point in time, your environmental studies, they'll do a bog turtle study. How much do you think that'll impact anything in what you're proposing? Because with me, it was even though it had an environment for them, not that they were there. I don't know how that fits in. Do you have that in, when you're starting to talk wetlands and doing this, that, and the other thing, you're getting in some heavy water.
Yeah, so we.
Because some people, and I've watched it happen, try to stop development on bog turtle or potential habitats. I don't know where it's gonna go. No, I'm not trying to stop you. I'm just trying to say, hey, listen, is this reality or do we have it in, I don't know.
Yeah, we have environmental. Did all of the wetland delineation mapping for the entire site, which again is required. We have to go out and map out before we start laying things out where all of the wetlands are. And then a part of his analysis is to go through and do different habitat studies for many of the endangered species.
Do you see that as a problem, anything that you put up on that paper?
And we have enough problems with that.
In other words, that's not gonna worry you.
It is something that is always sitting out there until you study it, and so, yeah, we're studying.
Thank you, thanks.
Thank you. Any more questions? Yes, ma'am.
There are a couple things, the 55 and older does reduce tax burden, full tax burden, which point out is the largest for the rest of the people who have been here for a long time, full time in council. The other thing that we owe it to our seniors to do that, but also if you look at the communities, Rich Mills was mentioned, Caribou is one, Carlos Point is one, two of those are our neighbors. They are immaculately kept, they are quiet, they're very good neighbors. And so it helps with the tax burden, they're great neighbors to have, we're doing the service for people who are 55 and older or disabled. And I really would like to see, I think a lot of people would like to see, not a suggestion, but that is a mandated thing. And when we talk about those communities, I hear you're talking the biggest developer in the country, the third biggest developer in the country. Wilkinson built some beautiful 55 and older communities in this area. And I wonder, I know they're supposed to be building a big home, but why aren't we looking at our local
our local builders rather than these big builders that, aren't local. All right, so if you could just consider that $55 not being something that you're building, that they might come a community, and you can charge more than townhomes for those type of things, but it would be win-win for everyone in the township. Thank you. Any final comments from anyone? Well, thank you for all the neighbors coming out. To all of you gentlemen, thank you sincerely for taking time to come out. I know you have to travel home and it's getting darker earlier now. So thank you very much for your time and your patience and entertaining all of the questions and the comments from everyone. It is appreciated. Any other non-action items that anyone would like to discuss? Any other general comments, any public comment on anything that anyone may have any questions about? Excellent. Then may I have a motion to adjourn? The meeting is adjourned at 9:03 p.m. Look forward to seeing everyone next September 24th. Thank you.
Oh, Patty, thank you.